The tale of the man who survived to lightning strikes is one of the most improbable and bizarre survival stories to ever capture the public's imagination. The person at the center of this strange phenomenon is Roy Sullivan, a former U.S. park ranger, whose life would take on an extraordinary and often surreal quality, marked by his repeated encounters with nature's most fearsome force. While most people may consider themselves unlucky to be struck by lightning once in a lifetime, Roy Sullivan is renowned for the fact that he survived being struck 7 times by lightning throughout each. His life an extraordinary feat that remains unmatched to this day. We will begin by taking a closer look at the events themselves, examining the circumstances of the 2 lightning strikes Roy Sullivan survived, then move on to the science behind lightning, its effects on the human body, and the factors that make surviving lightning strikes possible. We will also explore the long-term effects on a person's life when they survive such an extraordinary event. Finally, we will consider the cultural impact of Sullivan's story, which has captured the attention of people around the world, and what this odd story might reveal about the nature of chance, survival, and fate. Roy Sullivan. A brief biography. Roy Sullivan was born on February 7, 1929, in Greene County, Virginia, in a modest farming family. From an early age, he developed a love for the outdoors and nature, which would later guide the course of his career. Sullivan went on to become a park ranger in Shenandoah National Park, a sprawling and scenic area in the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. He spent his days patrolling the park, maintaining trails, and protecting wildlife, a job that would eventually place him in the path of lightning strikes time and time again. As a park ranger, Sullivan was often out in the open and working in remote areas, which increased his exposure to thunderstorms, a factor that played a crucial role in his multiple lightning strikes. But what made Sullivan's story even more remarkable was the fact that he survived each lightning strike, living to tell the tale. Roy Sullivan's career as a ranger was both successful and unassuming. However, his role as a public servant in Shenandoah National Park also became his curse. By the time Sullivan was struck by lightning for the first time, he had already worked in the park for several years, often finding himself in open areas during thunderstorms. Though his job had exposed him to dangerous situations working alone in remote, unprotected areas during some of the region's fiercest storms, no one could have predicted just how dangerous it would become for him personally. The first lightning strike, a close call first lightning strike that Roy Sullivan endured, occurred in 1942, when he was just 23 years old. At the time, Sullivan was working as a fire lookout in the Shenandoah National Park. He was stationed high up in the mountains, where he was responsible for monitoring the forest for signs of fires, a dangerous job that required him to be in constant contact with the elements. On that fateful day, Sullivan was performing his regular duties when he noticed a storm approaching. He knew that being exposed at high altitudes during a storm was risky, but as a seasoned ranger, he had become accustomed to unpredictable weather conditions. Unfortunately, his experience and familiarity with the natural world didn't provide enough protection against the overwhelming power of the lightning that would soon strike. As the storm closed in, Sullivan found himself standing in an open area, possibly near his lookout tower. Without warning, a bolt of lightning struck him directly, leaving him unconscious and severely burned. The strike hit his head and legs, leaving painful injuries that would mark the beginning of a long series of events that no one could have predicted. Despite the intensity of the lightning strike, Sullivan was miraculously resilient. After regaining consciousness, he was able to crawl back to safety and receive medical attention. This first strike, which would have been a life-threatening event for most people, was the beginning of Sullivan's inexplicable relationship with lightning. Remarkably, Despite the severe injuries, he survived the encounter, though his ordeal was far from over. The second lightning strike, a terrifying pattern, emerges for many people. Surviving one lightning strike would be enough to make them cautious around storms for the rest of their lives. But for Roy Sullivan, it was just the start of a surreal and deeply unsettling sequence of events. Only 7 years later, in 1949, Sullivan would be struck again, this time in an even more shocking and bizarre manner. The second lightning strike occurred when Sullivan was working in the park once again. This time, he was driving his truck along a road within Shenandoah National Park when, without warning, a bolt of lightning struck the vehicle. The powerful surge of electricity traveled through the metal frame of the truck, striking Sullivan on his head and leaving him unconscious. Though the details of his injuries are not widely documented, Sullivan's survival of this second lightning strike was nothing short of miraculous. He was found in the truck and rushed to the hospital, where doctors were astonished by his recovery. While he had sustained burns, Sullivan was able to leave the hospital within a short time, once again defying the odds. This second lightning strike would mark the beginning of a truly unique and unprecedented phenomenon. After this experience, Sullivan would go on to be struck by lightning 5 more times. But it was the first 2 strikes, both occurring under completely different circumstances, that left an indelible mark on his life and would shape the way people viewed him. The science of lightning. Why was Sullivan struck so many times? The survival of one lightning strike is a rare occurrence, and the odds of being struck by lightning at all are quite low. In fact, according to the National Weather Service, the odds of an average person being struck by lightning in their lifetime are approximately 1 in 15,000. The chance of surviving one strike is even higher, but surviving multiple lightning strikes is almost unheard of. So, how could Roy Sullivan, a single individual, have survived 7 lightning strikes? The explanation lies in a combination of chance, environmental factors, and Sullivan's personal circumstances. There are several theories and hypotheses that could explain why he became the subject of this unprecedented series of lightning strikes. 1. His work in open, exposed areas as a park ranger in the mountains of Shenandoah National Park. Sullivan was frequently exposed to thunderstorms. The higher elevation and open terrain made it more likely that he would be struck during storms, especially in the absence of cover. The nature of his job placed him in direct contact with storms and lightning-prone areas. Despite his many years of training and experience, he simply happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. 2. The lightning rod effect. Some experts believe that certain individuals might have a higher likelihood of being struck due to an effect known as the lightning rod phenomenon. This theory suggests that individuals with certain physical characteristics such as height, metal objects on their person, e.g., belt buckles or glasses, or other conductive materials, might be more prone to attracting lightning strikes. Sullivan's job, which kept him in close proximity to tall structures, may have further increased his risk. 3. A strange phenomenon of chance. In the final analysis, there may be little to explain Sullivan's repeated strikes other than sheer, incomprehensible bad luck. Lightning is a random, chaotic force, and as rare as it is to be struck by lightning, the odds of being struck repeatedly are even more improbable. In Sullivan's case, he may simply have been an extraordinarily unlucky individual who found himself in the path of lightning more times than any person could reasonably expect. The impact of surviving multiple lightning strikes. Surviving multiple lightning strikes takes a tremendous toll on a person, both physically and emotionally. Roy Sullivan experienced both physical injuries and psychological distress as a result of his repeated encounters with lightning. Physical effects. After each lightning strike, Sullivan experienced burns, scars, and other physical injuries. The first strike in 1940 left burns on his head and legs, while subsequent strikes caused more damage to his body. Despite the severe injuries, Sullivan was able to heal each time, though some of his strikes left him with lifelong scars and pain. His body was left marked by the trauma he endured, and his health was forever impacted. Psychological effects surviving multiple lightning strikes also took a significant psychological toll on Sullivan. For years, he struggled with feelings of fear, paranoia, and anxiety every time a storm approached. He reportedly became increasingly reluctant to go outdoors during storms, aware that each lightning strike brought him closer to death. The psychological effects of surviving such extreme events, particularly the trauma of repeated strikes, were clearly profound. Sullivan's case continues to be cited as one of the most remarkable instances of human survival against the odds. It is a story that fascinates and intrigues, offering insight into the unpredictable and chaotic nature of life, while also raising important questions about fate, survival, and the fragility of human existence. Roy Sullivan passed away on May 28, 1983, but his story lives on, reminding us of the strange and inexplicable wonders that nature can produce.